In this video, we're going to review the concept of complete the square. Keep in mind, completing the square is a mechanical operation. It is not a mathematical concept. It allows us to manipulate a quadratic equation or quadratic function so that it'll look more appropriate towards a term that is squared. So, in this particular case, we're going to look at this equation right here and recall that the formula for complete the square works on ax squared plus bx plus c equals to 0, such that you're taking b, you're dividing it by 2, and you're going to square that number. Now, there is a more complicated version of complete the square such that a is not 1. We're going to go ahead and cover that in a separate video. So, in this case, this right here is what's going to allow us to complete the square. This is what we're going to add and subtract from this problem. Now, again, the reason why this seems arbitrary and mechanical is because that's what it is. This is the number that will work to make this thing factorable in terms of a perfect square. So, in this case, I'm going to go ahead and carry down the x squared and the positive 6x. I'm going to add a number, I'm going to subtract that exact same number, and I'm going to carry down that subtraction of 7. Again, this moves over here, these two carry down here, and I'm going to complete the square on x squared plus 6x plus this particular box, that box being, again, what this number is right here. Now let's recall, the b value is the term that's with x, so in this case it's going to be 6. So I'll have 6 divided by 2 and squared. Now again, when I simplify this number, I'm going to simplify it such that it's 3 squared and then 9. I know that we can do this math in our head to get to 9, but this number right here helps us out later on in the end, especially if these numbers for b over 2 is relatively obnoxious looking. So this 9 is going to go ahead and be plugged right into this box as well as this box. And again, you'll notice that plus 9 minus 9 doesn't really add anything to this problem. We don't want to change the value of this quadratic. We just want to change the way it appears. So if you look at this x squared plus 6x plus 9, I'm going to put that stuff in a parenthesis, and that's what I'm going to factor. And if you were to factor those three terms, you'll notice that it will factor perfectly into x plus 3 times x plus 3. And I'm going to write that down in this form first, and then make note that, wait, if it factors into that thing like that, then it's x plus 3 quantity squared. Don't forget that you have these two terms here that need to also carry down, and since this is minus 9 and minus 7, this is really minus 16, all equals to 0. At this point, we have completed the square. The mechanical process of completing the square has been finished at this step. Now, if we were going to continue the problem and attempt to solve this equation, that's where we're going to move on next. So in this case, recall that if you're completing the square, you're going to have an equation that looks like this. And again, I'm rewriting it here separately to show you that this is a separate type of problem. This is complete the square. What we call this is terms of extracting the square root. And again, this is a method of solving a quadratic equation. In this case, I'm going to go ahead and get my quadratic term by itself. Again, the squared term all by itself, so I'm adding 16 to both sides. This will provide me with x plus 3 squared, and that's equal to a 16. At this moment, I'm going to go ahead and attempt to eliminate the squared, and the way that we eliminate a square is by square rooting. So if I were to square root both sides at this step right here, we have to remember that there is a positive and a negative case for numbers that we can square to get us to 16. And again, this is the mentality. I need to square something to get to 16. What number am I going to square? It's positive or negative 4. So again, I have to account for the square root of 16 being plus or minus 4. Again, the square root being plus or minus 4. At this moment here, I'm going to go ahead and subtract the 3. And again, anytime I subtract the 3, I'm going to put it in front of that plus or minus. So here I have my setup, and to finalize this problem, we're going to go ahead and separate it into the two cases, negative 3 plus 4. And x equals to negative 3 minus 4. And again, if we can, we must simplify as much as possible, providing with us x equals 1 and x equals negative 7. And again, you have two processes here. You have complete the square, which is adding and subtracting b divided by 2 squared to one end the same side of the equation. Again, your 9 and your negative 9. Getting this so that I can factor the x term so that this is the only x in my problem. And then from that point forward, you're just solving this using extract the square root.